You may recognize today's guest as Darren from the Tali franchise, the International Man of Movember 2011, the boet from Jozi Shores, SuperSport rugby presenter, as well as the many viral videos he shares with us online. But because there's nothing average about Anton Taylor, we invited the boxer, yoga instructor, and very sweaty boy to come and sit with us today to talk about Sweatiquette. He writes about the topic in the latest issue of Virgin Actives magazine Activate, which you can pick up from your club for free from January.
I think it started when I was a youngster in school. I remember we'd play, and this is where you start to realize that there are differences. We'd play football during break with each other. Now other kids would be fine. Like we're talking like maybe a bit of dampness on their shirt, whereas I was wet and my school uniform was a light khaki, but it was dark. You know, to the extent I actually thought the teacher wouldn't notice because it was fully, you know, a different color. I remember coming through at the end of break, coming into class, and again, like the other dudes are fine, you know, and I was drenched, and the teacher actually saying, and I mean, fair enough, like, look, I need you to go and shower. I was sitting in the desk. I think over the years, I'll be at a social event and I'm wearing something, you know, I've learned, don't wear gray, ever. Don't wear light blue, because you just get these stains. And I think it'll be like, everyone else is fine and I'm drenched. The boxing gym where I train, this is where I know where, you know, I have to wear sweat bands on my arm, on my head, and I wear one of these sort of like second skin things as well up to my arms, because when I'm boxing, the sweat's flying off into people's faces, catch the sweat with this like rash guard, and then I have a t-shirt overneath. That's drenched in sweat. And I think when we just compare to other people, there's an unusual amount of sweat, yeah, let's be honest, yeah. It's exerting for me sometimes to be standing, you know, so it's not like if I run up a flight of stairs or something, it's over, you know, particularly like that is the big trigger, but like light exercise, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. I can just be chilling somewhere and like noticing that I'm sweating, you know, invariably my lower back always gets stained to the back of my shirt. Hot food, yeah, it does make me sweat more. I used to drink, man, when I was hungover, it was, we were talking buckets, you know. Sometimes there's an idea that there's a smell associated as well with it. So I think the big thing is for people to know that like sweat is not gross or sweat is not unclean. It's a condition that not enough people know about, you know, like for me when it comes to antiperspirant, you know, it's pointless because put it under the arms, but you got to do it all over the chest, the lower back, everywhere as well. So I think by not stinking and by being clean, I think every person I meet is aware of that, and it's much like, reminds me of the story of the starfish where the guys, there's a whole lot of beach starfish and putting one back at a time, and he's like, well, that does make a difference, and he goes, well, to them it does, you know. So I like to believe that each person I engage with, and I break the stigma of sweaty people being disgusting and smelly, it helps, you know, it makes a benefit to the world, and obviously this platform is fantastic for it. I think that sweat that comes from crevices, you know, and places that don't see sun, don't see air, is the underarms. For normal people, you would say the underarms is where you have hair. For me, that's true of, you know, my whole body. So there's no particular place where I can say, oh, well, the hairs, you know, the sweat off my stomach doesn't get caught underneath the hairs. And I think, you know, as we mentioned earlier, it's different types of diet and consumption of alcohol. For me, it's all about sweat management. So this is actually something I feel quite strongly about, you know. I mentioned earlier, at my gym, I've got all the paraphernalia to limit my sweat or to make sweat more comfortable for other people. So there is nothing inherently wrong with sweating, but the problem lies when you're inconsiderate. So when you're at your Virgin, man, and you use the equipment, you gotta wipe it down. You know, I don't know if sweat towels are still a thing post-pandemic. Either use a sweat towel or spray it down. You know, I think that's, for me, something that I find really difficult when there's like sweat running off a machine, running off a bench. like I say, when I do boxing, the sweat flies on my arm, so I've got a sweat guard. And sometimes I'll be, you know, training with guys and their sweat, particularly the shaved head, it runs off and goes into my eyes, you know, runs into me, and I'm like, oh, this is not the way, you know. So think about sweatbands. I think it's a pretty cool retro look. But the main thing is, if you're suffering from, you know, extreme sweatiness, and this goes for, of course, the ladies as well, you just got to make sure that you're managing it, you know. Far be it from me to ever tell a woman how to manage her sweating, but you know, for guys, I think it's just navigating that sweat. And the main thing is not letting it get in other people's space, on their equipment, or parts of their body. Well, firstly, you're not alone. I think just knowing you don't have to suffer in silence, you know, and certainly that you're not a freak or a monster or some of the other names I've been called in my life. You're just a human being. But there's a lot more of you out there than you probably think. It's not a death sentence. It's just about navigating and managing the sweat. So you might have to put a bit more effort into, you know, buying products that catch sweat. You may have to have an extra shower compared to a normal person. It's not a condition that should ever prevent you from leading a normal, happy, and fulfilled life.
So much. So further. Bring it in here. Here we sweat.